Hi, Miruna. Welcome to the Finite Podcast.
Hi, Jody.
It's great to have you here today. I'm really excited to hear your story. We're just going to be talking about you, about your journey at Planable, your current company, how you've helped them evolve and shift, and how you've shifted and evolved alongside their growth as a marketing leader. So I'm sure this episode is going to be really, really helpful for basically every single listener. We're all B2B tech marketers. We're all probably fantasizing about this journey we're about to hear today. So can't wait. Before we get started, I'd love to hear a little bit about you, how you got into marketing, and basically your career journey so far.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I think, I got into the field, like I chose it quite randomly, I think, like many people do, because we don't necessarily learn that much about marketing in school. So choosing it as a path for university is quite strange. I probably saw some, I don't know, TV show or something that showed advertising, I think. Someone was an advertiser and it sounded very fun, very creative, and I wanted to do it. And later down the road, I realized that marketing and being an in-house marketing leader is something that falls right down my alley. It fits very well with my personality and my skills and my natural instinct, I guess. And I dove right into it. My first role was at Oracle as a social media publisher. That's what it was called. It was literally like the job description, obviously, evolved into a lot more than that, but the job description was to literally like help social media managers publish their content by essentially copy pasting it into tools. Of course, I started to go into analytics, and very quickly I started handling channels and sub brands on my own. And after that, I moved on to Uber as a marketing coordinator in the local team here. I was full of challenges, and that's where I think I learned the full funnel marketing and that sort of hyper growth mentality that helped me in the role that I transitioned it at Planable as the first marketer, which was 7 years ago.
Great. I mean, yeah, that's such a fast trajectory over how long was it between your first job and Planable, sorry?
It was quite fast. It was, I think,
Yeah.
under 4 years.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that just shows kind of maybe some inbuilt tenacity of drawing on that marketing degree as well. I know a lot of marketers don't have degrees, and in no way am I saying that you need to, but maybe it, yeah, definitely gave you a step up and maybe got you in the right doors and the right opportunities.
Yeah, and I do believe like the Uber 1.5 year at Uber, I feel like if it still feels so little, it feels like I was there for a decade because it was so accelerated in terms of learning and pace. It felt a lot more than 1.5 years.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So I would love to start almost kind of how we started when we had a little prep chat about this episode, because what you said at the beginning got me really excited. It was almost this kind of like elevator pitch of what you've done at Planable. And kind of like the before and after in terms of growth, in terms of team, in terms of your own leadership and your role. So could you give us like a little kind of snapshot of this, which we can dive deeper into later?
Yeah, well, first of all, I do believe, like, as you already highlighted, when I started at Planable, I didn't have that much experience. So I really like to think about my experience here as um, a learning journey and a growth journey that both me and Planable as a company have been on together, right? We rode this path together, and we started as very early stage, and we ended up where we're at right now. I think yeah, it was definitely very different stages along the way. When I joined, Planable was just starting out. It had 50 active customers. And we are a B2B company, but we're more like small and medium enterprises. So that means 50 customers is quite low, and it's definitely not enough to continue as a business. And today we are at 7,000 of active customers. So, and that happened over almost 7 years. So it's definitely been a long journey that had stages with totally different challenges, right? So if I were to like summarize it in a snapshot, I'd say there was a first stage in which it was just all about finding any sort of traction, anything went, right? There was no good or bad tactic. There was no long-term strategy. It was just let's find traction. There was the second stage of let's find some reliability in our marketing and our channels and our tactics, because it can't go on with just let's do whatever we can. Stage 3 was about, okay, now we have the channels, let's find the scale, right? We need to grow a bit faster. We need to accelerate our expansion. And I think stage 4 is kind of the one that we're still in at the moment. It's going beyond the active buyers and beyond the, let's say, low-hanging customers, right? And building a brand and building more awareness.
Fabulous. That was a really great overview. I think that number 40 to 7,000 is quite dramatic. And yeah, like I say, probably a fantasy or a dream for many B2B marketers listening. So, to give them some inspiration, to give them maybe a sense of direction or a strategic lens, um, I'd love to go through these stages and unpack them a bit more, find out what the challenges were at each stage, how you managed them, and also how you adapted not only your leadership but also your mindset. I'm really interested in that like personal approach and that personal perspective that people have to marketing. So, starting with the stage 1, could you tell us a little bit more about the challenges faced and the ways you got around them?
Yeah, I think that initial let's get traction phase is filled with doubt. It was filled with like imposter syndrome and anything else that you can think of, because it's hard to get immediate results, and it's hard to know what's working because you do not have or I didn't have the time and place to analyze and really hyper focus on a tactic or on a channel. So it was just let's try it all. It was also in the growth hacking era. So it was every day there was a new tactic, a new idea to test out to grow fast. And I think the challenge there was to choose what we should be doing, to prioritize, because there's an infinite amount of ideas at every stage, and prioritizing what to focus on is extremely challenging when you don't know what works yet. You don't know what the right bet is. Anything sounds, you're only hearing stories of others that made it through that tactic or through that channel, and it sounds like it could be you as well. But yeah, you have very little details that can guide you into making the right choices. So there's this feeling of running for a lot of running for very little results.
Interesting. Yeah, that sounds exhausting, actually. And I bet you're glad you're moved through the phase and that you've experienced that for yourself. But I think it's interesting because when entrepreneurs create a business plan, I feel like it usually feels like they're quite strict with that, and they have their goal and they have their way to get there, and you can be quite tied to a business plan and a marketing plan even in those early stages. So it's interesting that you were given this flexibility, and you took on this flexibility and this like trial and error experimentation approach. Um, can you give us any insight into what actually worked? What were those things that stuck in that phase?
Well, considering the very poor infrastructure and analytics that we had in place back then, I can't accurately say what worked. I can say that we thought about our pricing and business model from day one. And that was really important because we started with a free plan. We started with this idea of let's just get the word out there. But we iterated from the beginning, and I also put like the pillars of conversion and of customer journey from the get-go. Um, and it was a balance, I think. If I were to do it again, I would definitely keep a balance between these hacks or like one-time tactics and building for the future, right? Because, for example, product hunt launches and I don't know, going into communities and writing about your latest launch or product or beta or whatever it is. It's useful. It's super useful at the beginning, and it can have the immediate impact that you're looking for, as opposed to SEO, for example, or even paid sometimes, because it takes a while and some budget to figure out what's working. But a balance between these things that work now and these things that will really, you'll be thanking yourselves for starting them early, I think is key.
Interesting. Yeah. So taking that long term and short term approach. I think
Yeah.
when I came to marketing, everyone was very, very, very set on that short term. And it was interesting to be surrounded by what felt like pioneers who were like, no, you need to be thinking long term as well. Like that's the main thing. And I think it's great that we've made that transition. And now people are thinking more long term. Is that kind of how your mindset shifted? Is that the kind of major change in your approach, was taking that balance?
Yeah, I do think that at that point, that was the best thing that I did. And, balancing between the two, not rolling my eyes at um, just small tactics, but not, focusing on them only either.
Great. And I can assume this transition in mindset led you to your stage two. Do you want to go into a bit more about your stage two of growth?
Yeah, during the stage two, it was really okay. Now, it seems like we have some initial signs that some channels are working, right? So let's find what those reliable channels are, right? It seems like, I don't know, we have a few blog posts or content that is ranking in terms of SEO. We have a few ads that brought some customers. What can we do next about it? Can we actually build some sort of reliable influx of leads and of revenue customers? And that was a stage that definitely took a while. It was very difficult because once again, you're always afraid that the progress that you manage to make by that point can go away like after one day just because you didn't actually find a recipe. And I feel like we're all brainwashed with this idea that other companies made it because they found this super secret recipe or this super secret tactic. They did it, and poof, it was all explosive growth from that moment on. And that's such a myth. It's like we always see this hockey stick charts, and it's really experience that tells us that that's not one moment. It's like years that transform that growth and that that built the compound effect that it had. But during that stage too, it was more difficult to think like that, right? It was just looking for that secret recipe, and it was it took a lot of resilience to stay on a path and to continue investing in the same channels, although they didn't bring immediate results, but it felt right. It felt like they will work if we manage to find the right approach to them.
That's a really interesting take. I think people often underestimate the complexity and nuance of business success and how many levers need to be being pulled at any given point across time at different times by different people. It's not all on marketing, there's also business leadership.
Yeah, and I do believe like there's sometimes we make everything sound so simple, right? Like, what do you do for growth? Oh, I do SEO. Oh, great, I'll do that too. But like doing any sort of marketing tactic, the it, definition of whether it's going to work or not stays in a million of little details of execution and of how you do it, and most of the times, if you're in a company that never did that before, there's a lot of learning to do of how that particular channel or tactic applies to the particular company and context and market and audience that you're in. And yeah, we sometimes simplify things, and so it creates this expectation that if I'm going to try a channel, I should see almost immediately whether it works or not, and I should make a fast call.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like everyone's got these 3-month sprints, these quarterly sprints that are just so unrealistic to how things actually go. I just want to find out a little bit about the team structure and the team that you were building over this period. What was that starting to look like in stage 2?
Yeah, the first few hires were kind of hybrid generalist marketers that had some experience with some channels, but weren't specialized in anything because, as I said, we didn't know our channel, so it was very hard to put all our eggs in one basket and hire someone for something that we didn't know whether it would work or not. So we had, I think, first 2-3 marketing employees had very generalist titles like digital marketer, content marketer, and they had a background. The first person had a background in SEO, so they toyed with that a bit. They weren't SEO experts, but they had enough experience to be able to like put on a foundation and test the waters. And the second person was again generalist, but did have experience particularly with ads, Google ads, and a bit of like social as well.
Okay, so really kind of laying down those fundamentals and those foundation roles of, paid and SEO, I would say, definitely in the
Exactly.
main of digital.
Yeah, and then after that, we took this approach of, if we can test it ourselves, and if we find the confidence that this is looking like a promising channel, then we can hire someone with like a bit more experience into each field.
And I guess just one more question on stage 2. Is this when you started kind of building in an analytics and data function, a measurement function, or was that more stage 1? Like when did that start happening?
That's a very good point, actually, because at about, towards the end of stage 1 and beginning of stage 2, there was this inevitable question of, okay, we got this far. Clearly we did something right because customers came in, and now we have a business. We can breathe for a bit and actually come to work knowing that there's a tomorrow. But
That helps.
yeah, it does help. It does help. It was a bit more relaxing. But obviously the inevitable question was what worked out of everything that we've done so far. Because we did it all in the first stage. And I think that's a common practice. I don't know if it's hard to say whether it's good or bad, but it's definitely something that a lot of people do to try everything. So out of this mass and huge amount of things that we've done, what has worked and what are we keeping while we're continuing and while we're taking a more focused approach. Because now we're more mature, now we're a bit more grown up. Now we know that if we want to actually build a reliable business, we have to actually be able to focus on some things. And that requires, we let go of some others. But we didn't have the analytics to give us the clear answer. We started building that super reliable. We did have some analytics, but it was not like, the trust in the data was not there yet. It wasn't as accurate, as reliable. We did that. I think we waited for another few months and continued to do the same amount of things. And after that, we revised our approach because it looked like about 20% of what we were doing was actually moving the needle, and a lot of everything else was noise at the time, or it was just building towards, it was too early because we were also doing some like top of the funnel things that the company and the team was not ready for that sort of super long-term approach.
Interesting. Okay, and it's also very hard to measure that kind of thing, even if you are looking post after 3 months. So I can see why that would have come in later. So let's move on to stage 3. So this is all about scale. I assume that you've found things that are working, as you said. You've laid the foundation of your team. Do you want to talk about challenges during this scale phase?
Yeah, I think this was a new fear unlocked. Is this it? Can we actually, go bigger and scale everything that we're doing, or are we stuck on this slow but steady treadmill? At this point, we started to really, ask for external help as well, like start auditing what we were doing, looking a bit right and left for experts that could actually tell us if what we're doing was right, and starting to put some machines in place, right? Because for scale, you need to have very clear process. You need, especially for like really for any channel that's starting to ramp up, you need to have clear process in place, and they need to run on their own almost, right? And they need to be rigorous. So that was definitely a part of the challenge, because for us, at least, the very fine balance between quantity and quality started to feel like the biggest pressure, because we did feel at that point, and I still believe that part of the success was that we started to do things carefully. We started to understand, what actually, like the fine details that work, and our brand was always important for us, and the quality of the content that we would put out there. So scaling that whilst not losing any of the quality and the brand was difficult. We managed, but it didn't, because we were such sticklers for that part, it didn't happen as quickly as it could have, probably. It took us, I believe, I don't know, 6 months to a year to actually scale the channels that were working and turn it into a reliable machinery.
Interesting. Yeah, automation and processes, big parts of that scale. What would you have done differently if you were to do it again to maybe kind of optimize that, like, time?
I think that there were some key points in which we could have paused just for a bit to really jot down the specifics that we believe make for success, right? Because those are the foundation that you need in order to build the process. Otherwise, you're kind of going in blind. You're building a process and then you're looking at the output and you're not happy yet. And then you need to iterate on the process and you need to go back again. And there's too many iterations until you're happy, and that can take time. I don't feel like when we started scaling, we truly felt like we understand what we want. It was a lot of intuitive working, right? Because when you have a small team with a lot of autonomy, and they learn things on the go, and they don't necessarily mark them down. They just know how to implement them further, which is very hard to translate into an actual process.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, actually. I think we underestimate the amount of like tacit knowledge and like kind of in non-explicit knowledge that our team has that like can be hard to explain to boards and can be hard to explain to each other, or even if they leave and someone new has to come in, and all of these like fine details to the day-to-day work that go almost taken for granted, and yeah, can be hard to automate and process. Very interesting. So can I ask, because you didn't come in as a CMO, when did you get that CMO position? Was that at that scale phase?
I think so. I can't remember the date or time because it was more like this. The name was kind of came after the
Yeah,
natural growth that happened within the
it always
role.
does.
But I think so. I think at that point when the team started to grow, it became more important to define the team that we had in place as a company for growth.
Yeah, cool. Did that impact your relationship with other stakeholders? Did that help marketing get more kind of buy-in from the business, or was that always kind of in place?
I'd say it was always in place. The hierarchy within the company didn't change as much. I was still, part of very close to the C-level execs before that as well. It did. I was quite close with the executive team until actually being an official part of the executive team.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's quite typical for
Small teams, yeah.
companies that scale so quickly. Yeah, so really great to hear. Um, so we're on to our final stage now, and this is all about building the brand and going beyond your active buyers. So, do you want to talk about challenges during this phase and how you overcame them?
Oh, it's a lot of challenges. I think this is a phase in which it's most humbling, I'd say, because when, at least for me personally, because I was very adamant about growth marketing and about actual clear results, customers, conversions, that's what counts. And it worked so far. So it was very humbling when I kind of had to start to look to the brand side of things and to the awareness and middle of the funnel and top of the funnel tactics, which are things that I kind of scoffed at as a junior or as I was growing into marketing. It felt like it was not palpable enough, or like it was, traditional old school marketing, like Coca-Cola does this. New marketing is, so much more technical and to the point. So in that way, yes, it was humbling. It took a lot of kind of accepting things that I believed to be true, accepting that I was wrong, and that at a certain stage within a company, you have to look to, yes, more different marketing that's more traditional and that you actually learned in school, because you were saying, the marketing that you actually learned in school, because no one actually teaches you in school to build growth loops or to do the growth hacks, but they do teach you about the funnel and about the amount of awareness that you have to do to help with that conversion. So that was the first challenge. Of course, that comes with a lot of learning that you have to do. And the second challenge is the huge shift in mindset, not only to me, but to the entire team. Um, as you start working on less attributable and less trackable tactics, it starts to feel like you're not sure what you're doing. You're less, you feel less accomplishment. You know, it's not as clear how everything that you're doing is helping. I'm sure we're getting better onto figuring out metrics along the way before that revenue metric. Um, but it is a challenge for us as a team to start appreciating metrics of awareness and metrics of of brand credibility and yeah.
Yeah, cool. I think it's a positive thing that you were so comfortable with the data that you were collecting and you really got into the rhythm of listening to that and using that and obviously seeing that scale. So I guess we'll have to have another episode when this phase is over for you so we can gain the lessons learned and the how you got over these challenges. But I think it's a sector-wide challenge of not really having a needle of brand, not knowing where it's pointing and trying to feel that kind of non-tangible impact that is there, but is almost like an intuition rather than a number.
Yes.
Would you agree? Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
Cool. So that's all of our stages of growth. Thank you so much for taking us through those. Are there any final messages, any final words of wisdom that you would like to tell our audience who are embarking on this journey, whatever stage it may be?
Um, as cliche as it sounds, embrace their journey as something I'd say, because there's so many lessons along the way, and I personally love being humbled because that means that I'm learning something new and that I am growing up into a whole new world. So yeah, definitely embrace the lessons and challenges as they come because uh, they help us be better.
I love that. Not cheesy at all. Thank you
Not
so
cheesy
much,
at all.
Miruna.